We're here today to answer a very important question, which is, can cooperation rebuild British business? And for those of you who are watching from overseas, I hope it will be just as relevant to you as it is for us over here. Today is a very important day because it's the launch of the International Year of Cooperatives, which is designated by the United Nations. And we're launching here in the UK and also in other parts of the world. And it's a really important time to get the voice of the co-ops back out into the world, because as we know, the last few years we've seen what happens when we have short-termism and greed and people believing in their individual rights and their individual wealth rather than in the common good. And we see what the state of the world that has created, which is a bit of a mess. So actually it's really important to be able to hear the voice of a movement that has been around for well over 100 years.
Well, I think that we have been taught over a long period of time that we are born selfish. That was Richard Dawkins' great claim in The Selfish Gene, and that's been reinforced by years of neoliberal economics, that basically selfishness actuates the economy. And basically I think that's all wrong. Innovation is essentially a collaborative activity. Innovation usually comes from people combining ideas in new ways, and that's impossible unless you create collaborative and cooperative business. And that is basically that you cannot buy love, care, friendship, recognition or respect. You cannot get any of those things from Amazon. They come from relationships. And an economy which values those things has to value doing things with people rather than two or four.
Millions of sort of large and small businesses. It ranges from all across that. So, Pauline.
Well, thank you very much. And you know, it's a great gift that the United Nations has given to the co-op movement by declaring 2012 the International Year of Cooperatives. The cooperative model of business is not business as usual. It's a people-centred business, and it's a business form that is stretching right across the world to every village, every city, every town, every corner of the globe. Community, social and environmental ethos, right through to businesses with scale. Show that the largest 300 co-ops are, over the last 4 years, have grown so that they're now worth together 1.6 trillion US dollars, which is equivalent to the economy of Canada. That's the value of the International Year, the opportunity to drive awareness of our model of business, to drive awareness of what more it can do to help develop the world in a sustainable, fully democratic system that takes people as its core, servicing human need rather than human greed.
Thank you, Paul. Next we've got Len Wardle, who's the chair of the cooperative group, and that is, you know, the example within the UK of great success, because it is the largest mutual business, and it operates over 5,000 retail and trading outlets, employs more than 110,000 people with an annual turnover of 13.7 million, and that's an example.
We have been in business for over 170 years, the first one being food. So the little shop in Rochdale provided wholesome food for the local people. So we're now in food, funerals, pharmacy, travel, online electrical, we have farms, and more recently we move into new kinds of business like legal services. And we're hoping that we're going to be one of the first organisations to be approved by the regulator to offer legal services to everyone in the UK. Our fundamental difference from PLCs is that we're organised according to cooperative values and principles, which makes a difference.
Thank you, Len. We're now very fortunate to be joined by Mr. Li from China. And so, Mr. Li, welcome. It's very kind of you to join us. So what would you like to tell us?
It's my honor to have this opportunity to attend this panel. Thank you for your invitation. ACF SMC is a volunteer association of all supply and cooperative movement in China. Consists of one apex body, Sichuan Provincial Federation, 343 professional federations, 21,602 primary cooperatives, and nearly 2 million employees will offer a range of service from supply and agricultural input and daily necessities, processing and marketing of agricultural produce, technology, gardens, to healthcare, and I hope we take opportunity of 2012 to promote cooperative movement in the world together.
Ed Mayo is Secretary General at Cooperatives UK. Ed, you're going to talk to us a little bit about why now? Why are we talking about cooperatives? What opportunities do they have for a new business outlook?
It's a mass ownership strategy, spreading wealth, sharing profits, and spreading ownership kind of more widely through the economy in that kind of democratic way. But it's a good strategy, I think, for a tough economy, because in tough times, you really do want to hold your customers and workers close to you. The idea of sharing profits with those in the business is that it's helping to create a more fair and a more sustainable economy for many, many people.
Why has social enterprise, in a sense, become the buzzword, and cooperatives, in a sense...
In European context, we're talking about social business. In Italy, they're talking about social economy. In Japan, much more about cooperatives. So the words vary, and I think there's a huge creativity to the words that we use in any form of social change. The truth is, cooperatives are forms of social enterprise. What's distinctive about cooperatives is this membership side. And Len talked about it, the democratic way of organising, and Mr. Lee as well, that there's an accountability there to people, and you use your members, whether they're the people who work for the cooperative or the people who shop there, to your advantage.
Well, I just want to come back to you. We had a question online from Alison Freeman from Forum for the Future, and she said, in a sustainable economy in 2050, what percentage of business would be based on a cooperative model, and what is the roadmap for achieving that target?
By its very essence, is inherently local, autonomous and sovereign. That's a great strength on the ground, and it's what brings these billion people together across the world. But it doesn't give us a sort of global brand like a Nike or a Walmart. And the great thing about this year, this international year, is it allows cooperatives everywhere across the globe, with the sanction of the United Nations, to identify themselves and to really showcase their cooperative nature and what they do locally, how they use their surpluses, profits, and the social agenda that that's baked into the DNA of cooperatives. And we believe that if the movement working together, and it's never worked together in quite this way across the world before, but working together, the movement can increase its influence, increase public knowledge, increase the knowledge of decision makers. It's large US electrical cooperatives who cover 80% of the landmass of the United States. Those cooperatives are working in Bangladesh with the aid of USAID and DFID to actually build electrical co-ops in villages in Bangladesh, bringing electricity to those villages for the first time. And that's the sort of evolution, long-term sustainable evolution, that we believe the co-op movement's got to offer. The co-op model of business could be the fastest growing business model in the world, and that's what we're aiming for.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Do you see that scale here? Are we actually going to move forward or not?
I hope we will move forward, because whilst I represent one of the largest co-ops in the UK, if not the world, in this audience there are people who represent very tiny co-ops. As a representative of a huge organisation, which if it were quoted on the stock exchange would be in the top FTSE 30, that's the size of the cooperative group, we have a duty to help others. During the last year, 2011, we helped to set up one new co-op per day in the United Kingdom. So these are small local enterprises, and hopefully, like Charles mentioned, they have a relationship with their local community and will have an impact on their local community. And over the next 3 years, the cooperative group has set aside about £17 million to help develop new cooperatives. Throughout the United Kingdom, we're organised democratically on 50-odd area committees. and they have the responsibility for the shops and premises in their area.
Charles, I just want to challenge you on, because you're saying that there's this duality. We either move towards cooperation or conflict, and that's, that is extreme the choice. But when we actually look out there with the problems we're facing with sustainability, like climate change and resource use and biodiversity, we actually see that we're finding very little cooperation, for instance, on a global scale. When times are really difficult, and as we are likely to continue to face, that actually people become more selfish, because actually they become more fearful, more protective, more holding on to what they can. So how do we, as a society or within business, actually ensure that we move in a positive way rather than actually in a negative?
The worst thing about the economy that we live in is that many of the systems that we work with encourage us to see problems through that lens. They crowd out cooperative solutions, because the more we think that in order to do things you need material incentives, rules and sanctions, the less cooperation you're likely to get. Basically, the whole financial system has been a kind of innovation machine designed entirely for its own sake, rather than the sake of the people it's meant to serve. Basically, free banking in the UK is a way to rip everyone off without telling them. The biggest and most impressive social financial innovation in the last 10 years has been microcredit. I mean, it's done more for more people than any kind of innovation that's come from the city that you could mention. The environment, although you're right, precious little cooperation at a governmental level, actually what's evident is that coming up from the bottom, from cities, communities, energy sharing, transport sharing, and increasingly from companies, will be cooperative solutions. So I don't think there's any way to solve the big environmental challenges without new cooperative solutions to make better use of shared resources.
Globalisation is spawned is actually a return to localism. So it's not, so scale isn't just about the size of one organisation, it's the size.
So I think that, again, this is something that cooperatives, in a way what Pauline was describing, how do you create scale out of many small things? Our traditional model, the industrial model of scale, is big resources, big solutions, big impact. Well, actually what we're learning is that if you use small resources in the right way and network them together, you can have a huge impact. That's the new model of scale. And so the big challenges, organisational challenges I see, are lots and lots of people trying to grapple with how do you get scale from networks, how do you get scale from sharing, rather than having huge big resources to achieve that. And the models that achieve that are more like movements than organisations. They see themselves as movements. So one of the things that the cooperative movement has to do is really be a movement. I mean, really be something that really animates people.
The co-ops here are coming together. They've got this year to sort of show their worth.
Are they really embedded in people's lives, or are they just aspirational values? They have to be embedded in people's lives. They have to be a daily kind of recurrence of cooperation to fuel it. And the third is language. So I see an economy where the sort of the obvious bit, the top of the iceberg, is corporate, financial, organisational brands, but underneath there's this mass of unspoken, hidden value in relationships and cooperation, and that's what we've got to somehow bring out. And the danger, I think, in our economy here is that we have been encouraged to see our economy through the lens of the obvious corporate, transactional, financial economy, and so completely mistake the fact that much of what we most value and much of the value that we create comes from stuff we do with one another, not to or for one another.
I've learned a lot, including that I'm much older than I think. So thank the panel for all that.